Hi everyone, you're watching Tamit Saleh's Tennis Forum and welcome to this week's episode of Tennis Tuesday. Today we are going to be looking at the ATP rankings going into the Australian Open, who the seeds are going to be, the aftermath of the ATP Cup, and a little bit of what we can expect perhaps in Australia. If you haven't already, then please do subscribe as I do release weekly videos. You'll be getting a lot of additional content for the Australian Open, so yeah, I hope you don't miss out on any of those. But yeah, if you want to check out my last video, which was about Novak Djokovic beating Rafa Nadal and leading Team Serbia to victory in the inaugural ATP Cup, the link will be up here somewhere and also in the description below. I'm going to answer one of your guys' questions as well about who I think will be the season-ending top 8. So that'll be at the end of the video. But yeah, we have to look at the rankings. There's been a few notable changes, a few career highs. So without further ado, let's roll the intro. So as you guys know, Novak Djokovic led Team Serbia to victory. The ATP Cup, unlike the Davis Cup, did award ranking points. So the ranking points was based on your performance on the singles, and also it depended on the ranking of your opponent. So the higher the ranking of your opponent, the more ranking points you received. The maximum available for any individual player was 750. Novak Djokovic by far got the most ranking points. He won all of his singles matches. He received 665 ranking points, quite a large amount really, but it was not enough to get him to that world number one spot or the top seed for the Australian Open. Rafa Nadal still remains on top on 10,235, about 500 ahead of Novak Djokovic on 9,720. This is quite significant because, as you know, Novak Djokovic is defending a victory in Australia. Rafa Nadal is defending a finals appearance. So yeah, for Novak Djokovic to now leapfrog Rafa, most likely he will need to win the Australian Open to keep that level on 9,700. Rafa will need to lose just over 500, which means he would have to go out before the quarter-final stage. Or like the quarterfinal or before. If Rafa Nadal reaches the semi-finals of Australia, then he is guaranteed to keep his world number one spot post-Australia. Roger Federer remains in third place on 6,590. Of course, he did not take part in the ATP Cup. We're going to see if that was a good choice or maybe a bit of a bad choice, because, you know, there's two sides to this, like a double-edged sword. You can say that Rafa and Novak, having had long weeks in the ATP Cup, they may be a little fatigued going into the Australian Open, but at the same time you can also say that they are now battle hardened, so they're ready. They don't need any more warm-ups, and plus they do have a week's break in between, which isn't anything out of the ordinary. If you look at some of the other slams like the French Open, you do have a Masters 1000, Rome I believe, and then a week in between. Same with Wimbledon, with Queens, and then the Cincinnati, then you get a week, and then the US Open. So I don't think fatigue will come into play, but we shall see. Good to have Roger back as well. One of the most notable movers from the ATP Cup was Daniil Medvedev. It's his career high, but of course he reached this last year as well, so he's matched his career high of world number 4 by reaching the semi-finals of the ATP Cup. He's leapfrogged Dominic Thiem. Medvedev on 5,960, just 70 ahead of 5th place Dominic Thiem on 5,890. This is significant because it ensures Daniil Medvedev now cannot face any of the big three until at least the semi-finals of the Australian Open. Personally, I'm really looking forward to this draw because I feel like Novak's threat in the Australian Open will be from the next gen. So players like Medvedev, Tsitsipas, perhaps even Dominic Thiem, who I don't classify as next gen. But I feel like Novak on the hard courts in Australia, he's going to have that edge over Rafa or Roger. With Rafa, he's won 19 consecutive sets on the hard courts, and one other fact is that the last it was 8 before yesterday, so the last 9 matches between them, Rafa has only broken the Novak Djokovic serve twice. That's in 9 matches. So yeah, that's where I feel his threat is. If I was Novak Djokovic, I would want Roger Federer in my half of the draw. I feel like that'll be a better bet for Novak than having someone like Danu Medvedev. Dominic Thiem, like I said, is fifth. Stefano Tsitsipas remains in sixth place. And then Sasha Zverev and Matteo Berrettini finish off that top eight. So no other real movements there for the top eight seeds of the Australian Open. I'd like to mention a couple of other big movers or, some career highs. So Andrei Rublev. Now, I rate this guy a lot. I think he has big potential. He won the Qatar Exxon Mobil Open in Doha last week as well. Potentially because a lot of the players were playing in the ATP Cup. Of course, with Russia having Medvedev and Khachanov, Rublev wouldn't have got in the side. So yeah, he played that. He won that. And he becomes the third youngest champion in the history of that specific tournament. He has moved up 5 places to a career high of 18th in the world. Daniil Medvedev, he's matched his career high. RBA, Roberto Bautista Agut, has also matched his career high. He's now ranked 9th in the world. And some other notable movers, Denis Shapovalov, career high of 13th now. Dan Evans from Great Britain, 33, and I believe he will get his first ever seeding at the Australian Open with the 32nd seed. So that is the rankings update. It was nice to see how the ATP Cup had an effect on the Australian Open. The biggest benefiter from this tournament really was Daniil Medvedev getting that 4th seeding spot. I've said this many times, it's very important, that 4th spot. 3rd and 4th are quite similar for me because, it's still a 50-50 chance for either half. But that 4th compared to 5th, massive thing. Because now someone like Dominic Thiem, he's going to have to beat like either Medvedev or the big three from the quarterfinal onwards. So yeah, that's the ranking update for you guys. I want you to let me know what you think of the Australian Open. Like I've said, this Thursday the draw comes out, so I will be releasing a draw video explaining, like I've done in previous Masters and Slams as well, who's facing who and potential routes to the final for the big three. I can't wait now, really. I'm getting back into this tennis groove. I would just like to thank all of you guys for the support and also the birthday messages from my last video. It really did mean a lot. But yeah, let me know what you think. Also about the ATP Cup, was it a success? I said this in the previous video as well. For me, I think it's the perfect warm-up event to the Australian Open. Whether we need both the ATP Cup and the Davis Cup, that's another question. But yeah, that's the rankings for you guys, and I will end this video by answering a question. Let me just get it out for you now. So yeah, this question was asked by Brandon M, a good friend of the channel. He's a regular contributor and great contributor, really. So he asked me, well, he wants my predictions for the 8 players making the World Tour finals end of 2020. Now this is a massive prediction to make, really, because yeah, we're still on the 2nd week of January. A lot can happen over the year. It's not just young players. We have some elder players perhaps making their comebacks. Players like Anderson, Del Potro, Andy Murray, Stan Wawrinka perhaps, Grigor Dimitrov, who had quite a strong end to last year. So they could also climb up the rankings. But if I had to pick names right now, and look, this is a player could be injured, things like that, especially with the next gen as well. They're sometimes a bit inconsistent with their forms, like Sasha Zverev. But if I had to make a prediction at this very moment, I would say that Novak, Rafa, Roger, Medvedev, in no particular order by the way, Dominic Thiem and Tsitsipas, the current top 6, I feel will all make the top 8 next year. Now the other two, Zverev and Berrettini, look, Zverev, everyone knows he has bags of potentials. He's won 3 Masters 1000, so it's not a joke, but he's failed to translate that into the Grand Slams and having that consistency. Berrettini as well, he just kind of popped up to the scene at the US Open. He did have a good run in Paris, but yeah, if I had to pick those top 6, and I would say Denis Shapovalov, the young Canadian, 20 years old, I think he's going to make the top 8. And Andrei Rublev, that's for me, that's the top 8. So those top 6, and then they'll be joined by Shapovalov and Rublev. That's who I think will make the top 8 end of this year. Let me know who you think. Do you agree with me? Do you completely disagree with me and think I've gone crazy? I'd love to hear what you think, and that will be the question of the day for you guys. I know it's a bit early, or it's very early, but who do you think will be the top 8 players at the end of the year taking part in the World Tour Finals, which will be held in London for the last time before it moves to Italy? I'm going to wrap it up there. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. I always say this as well, but let's try hit that 50 thumbs up, get you on that consistent basis. Every time I've asked you guys, it's gone way over 50, but we're keeping it at 50. I might increase it for the Australian Open, but yeah, 50 thumbs up please, and subscribe for future videos. The draw video will come out hopefully on Thursday, as well as some predictions, and hopefully getting one of you guys on the show as well. I'll wrap you up there. Thank you very much for watching.